Hello and welcome back to T-Boys, the podcast of Philippine golf. I'm your host Mike Besa. My partner Jed Lianes is working behind the scenes today. And I'd like to welcome our special guests, former Assistant Secretary of Tourism Ricky Alegre.
Hi Mike.
My former colleague at the Business Mirror.
Of course, yep.
And our special guest, very special guest, Mr. Minieng Maravilla, the president of the Iloilo Golf and Country Club.
Hi Mike, great to be here.
Oh, glad to have you. Today we're going to tackle a topic that's very close to all of our hearts, and that is golf tourism. Let me set this up by telling all of you that golf tourism worldwide is a $250 billion industry. And according to our numbers, the accuracy might be a little off, but we get less than 0.02% of that in the country. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that that is a tremendous opportunity squandered. I mean, if you think about how many tourists actually, golf tourists, are in the country, most of them are Korean, they used to be Japanese, but very little of that money that they spend actually trickles down back into the local economy. And the reason for that is they have their own infrastructure here. They have their own restaurants, their own hotels, their own resorts. So a lot of that money, although plenty of money is coming in, a lot of it is retained by the Korean principals. Okay? I think that's just a pity. That's just a shame. And we have to do something about it. Now, when Ricky was with the Department of Tourism, hopes were really high. We hosted the Asian Tourism Convention, the first time that it's ever been hosted here in the country. Again, expectations were high, and then it just kind of fizzled out. Ricky, what happened there?
Well, you're right, Mike. We won the background. We won the bid to host the Asia Inbound Golf Tour Operators Conference. We won it in Vietnam in 2017 through bidding, and we hosted it in 2018. If I recall, with the help and the aggressiveness of the group of Connie Mamaril and our friends from Resorts World as well, that's where we are today. We were able to host, I think, something like 560 golf tour operators in a big gathering. But as it is, there was a sudden change in the leadership of the department, and that has been put on the back burner, so to speak.
Now that's really a pity. I mean, if you think about the other projects that were being bandied about at the Department of Tourism at about the same time that golf tourism was being discussed, you had things like farm tourism and medical tourism. And, it really got me to thinking, how much money do these sub-markets within the tourism market actually expect to generate? I don't think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems that the amount of potential earnings from these sub-markets pale in comparison to what the potential for golf tourism is.
Also because the average golf tourist spends like $200 a day for hotel, green fee, caddy fee, all the fees that go with it. And they stay for 5 to 7 days, play 4 to 5 courses, and then they're off to another place to play again. Compared to the other projects being pushed, and golf tourism is you're expected to have repeat arrivals. In fact, we have a term for that, Mike, and meaning it's high-end tourists.
Yeah.
The whole of ASEAN and Asia is very much into golf tourism because of its potential. And we decided, with the efforts of our friends from the industry, that to reboot, let the private sector reboot the effort to promote golf tourism.
What are some of the factors that are holding this industry back?
Well, for one thing, majority of our courses are membership privately owned. We don't have a lot of resort golf courses. We have a few, but some are dedicated for a specific nationality. That's a big stumbling block, but there are ways for the private courses to open up a portion, and we're not saying all, Mike, we've said this many years ago, just a portion of the tea time through the midday to afternoon for us to be able to promote and give them slots. And in return, the golf courses also are asking for incentives, which is all part of this whole effort to reboot golf tourism. Another stumbling block, of course, is how we promote abroad. Unless it is a major campaign of the Department of Tourism, people will not hear about it abroad. But that's something that can be addressed by the private sector again, because of the world of social media.
Yeah, which is what we're doing here now, is a step in that direction.
Exactly.
And there doesn't seem to be any shortage of proponents for golf tourism here. You talk to the tour operators, the hotels, everybody's so gung-ho on it, but we can't seem to get off the ground. We were talking offline before we came on the air, and we recounted how one of the largest tour operators in Thailand is at the point of utter frustration with our market here, because it's just too difficult to do business in our country. Now, that's got to change, obviously, if we want a real influx of tourists.
One of the discussions made during the recently concluded very successful first Iloilo Golf Summit was to help make it easier for the prospective golf tourists to plan and play in the Philippines. And that will require better coordination with the Bureau of Immigration, with transport, to get them there safely and back to their hotel and then off to their next destination. I think it's all coming to a head. Minieng will discuss later what the summit had accomplished, and we're getting there one step at a time. But we have to move now because of the big plan for 2020.
Can you detail some of those plans? Just a little snapshot of what's in store in 2020.
Maybe I will defer to Minieng.
Okay, before we go there, I'd like to take some time to thank Resorts World for hosting us. We are in Ginsadon, one of the many wonderful eating establishments here at Resorts World. They were kind enough to allow us to do our show here, and we thank them. And if you're looking for a place to hang out, to while away the traffic, you'll be hard-pressed to find a nicer place than Resorts World Manila. So anyway, let's get back to our discussion. Minieng, I have a long history with Iloilo, but I'd like you to come on, and if you guys haven't played Iloilo Golf and Country Club yet, which is more commonly known as Santa Barbara in the golfing community, you really need to play it. This is the oldest continuously existing golf course in the country, older than any golf course that you can care to name. And there's a historical background to it. So I'm going to let Minieng explain all of that. The club belongs to the Association of 1907 Clubs. Can you tell everyone what that is?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ricky. And glad to be here. This whole thing actually, speaking of the Iloilo Golf Summit 2019, it all started with a conference in Orchard where Connie Mamaril, speaking of Connie, was a special guest speaker, and she came out with her statistics about how poorly we were doing when it came to golf tourism in Asia. And when I heard that Vietnam was actually voted as the #1 golfing destination, it occurred to me, I said, you know, those bunkers in Vietnam are still smoldering from the bombs dropped by the Americans. And here we are lagging behind them. And that's not it. When I heard that Laos and Cambodia were even, you know, beating us, I said, something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. So, we started talking about Golf Summit, then called Ricky, called Connie, we called Body Resurrection, and Joe Dagdagan. I said, you guys, I heard you guys talk. And then Body Resurrection is a no-holds-barred columnist for Inquirer Golf.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, let's put these guys together, meet in where like you said, the oldest golf course in the Philippines is. And it is just so fitting because during that conference last May, when some of the delegates were talking how old their golf courses were, they were 25 years old, and they were complaining about aging clubhouses, aging equipment. And after they spoke, I stood up. I said, you know, our golf course is 113 years old, and and there was this quiet in the room, you know, like okay. Then I going back to how old we are. It's not how old we are; it's how rich in history that we are.
Correct.
And speaking of the symbolism of where we held that summit, was because being in that region where the golf was fostered actually all these years, seems just right to start off like what Ricky was saying, to reboot golf tourism in the Philippines, you know. So then we all gathered together. At first I was afraid that only a few would take the idea in, but then it started growing and growing and growing, and like Ricky said, we made a difference, you know. So then we made a manifesto offering or asking for 2020, for the government to declare 2020 as the National Golf Tourism Year. And you know, people were saying, well, it's September already. 2020 is just a few weeks away. I said, well, you know, there is an urgency in the air here. When are we going to start?
Yeah.
You know, if we put it like 2 years from now, they'll forget it. They'll
It's
shelve
already
it.
been too
You know,
long coming.
We have the habit of doing that. So
Yeah.
going back, so we gathered together, we spoke about it. The problems, like you said, had to be had to surface, had to be mentioned. Because we can't just keep saying rosy things about ourselves,
right.
right? We
There are
got
certain realities we have to
go
deal
down
with.
to the root of the problem of why we cannot compete. And by the way, do you know that golf is not just a game, you know, that people play? It's an industry. There are hundreds and thousands of Filipinos involved in this industry. We're talking not just the caddies, we're talking about the waiters, the people who work in the golf course maintenance, the suppliers, the hotels that cover these trips,
Yeah.
the bus operators.
That's what I think a lot of people don't understand about.
Right. It's
the game
not
of
just,
golf.
you know, a bunch of
It's
guys
how far it reaches into our society.
hitting a white ball in a green fairway. No, it's beyond that. So I think this is a national effort that is needed for golf tourism to come back here.
No, and I think really that's nothing short of that is going to be required. You know, we have so much potential. Just about every golf course that we have that I'm aware of, that I'm familiar with, can host the championship event. We don't have too many fun courses, resort courses that, you know, just the average person can go around and knock a ball about. Most of the courses here are championship golf courses, which were intended to host the best players in the world. So it's true, some in conditioning and some other areas like that, we might be a little lacking, but in terms of the design of the golf course, the challenges it poses to the golfer, I think our golf courses are as good as any in the region. You know, it's just a matter of opening our minds to the possibility and working. I mean, look at Thailand, for example. Thailand was the third largest tourism destination when I went to the Asian Golf Tourism Convention 6 years ago or so. They're now number one. And they're growing even faster. I mean, the whole government has thrown their support behind golf tourism as a major way to earn tourism dollars.
That is the key.
That is the key. I mean, the government's behind it. It's incentivized golf. It's given the clubs incentive to open their golf courses. And I don't see why that model can't work here. We already have the raw material. We're not starting from ground zero. It's not going to take a massive infusion of cash to get this going. All it takes is a concerted effort by everyone involved, agreeing on a common thing. And we should be off and running.
You know, Mike, what we did in Iloilo Golf, we did some cosmetic work on the clubhouse. We made new uniforms for caddies. But all in all, we spent very little. We didn't have to tear down the clubhouse. We just put a new coat of paint. Clean the floors, clean the bathrooms, you know.
Make it presentable.
Make it presentable. Made a nice parking lot, trained the caddies some more, made them smell good. We opened up, the shower room for the caddies. But what I'm saying is it's not rocket science to be prepared for guests to come into your golf course. You know, you don't have to spend so much money. It's already there. Just put a new coat of paint.
And I think people need to know really how far the economic benefits reach. Now, you just hosted the Iloilo Golf Tourism Summit, and your presentation was very interesting. Why don't you tell our listeners about that?
Well, as host, you know, you always want to say something smart or something that makes an impact. But then again, something hit me. I said, who am I kidding? Who is this really for? So I called my caddy, who's been my caddy for the last, 15 years, 20 years. Then I invited his wife, his son, and his two younger daughters. And as Ricky can vouch for, I made them stand in front of the delegates. I said, guys, you know, this is my caddy, introduced him. His wife, who helps, he's my payungar. His son, who is a recipient of the caddy junior program. The two daughters are scholars of our junior program, and so on and so forth. And so are the other families there. But I said, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, this is my speech. You're looking at my speech. This is for these people that we are here for. This is the effect of golf to the Filipinos. Look at it. And right away, I looked at the delegates bring out their cell phones, take pictures, you know? And
that's a clear indication.
Ricky, how long was my speech?
Understood how deep.
What, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes speech?
Yeah.
Really, and that spoke volumes.
Yeah.
And the impact was there, Mike.
Yeah.
I myself was struck. I know that tourism in general is very inclusive. But when Minieng presented it, that session during the afternoon, it changed a lot of things in my mind. Because I know the husband and wife, caddy and umbrella girl, but the aspect of the children benefiting, it struck
that'll strike a chord with anybody.
chord in everybody that was
Yeah.
there. And I did show you, I shared that photo.
Right.
And we always said that at the department when I was there, that tourism, as instructed by the president, should be inclusive. And it really is inclusive, because along the way, although the hotels, transport, earn from it, But along the way, even those that produce the souvenirs and the food that they bring home, as souvenirs or as pasalubong, that has a trickling effect down
Yep.
across all economic class.
And
If tourism golf can do that, golf tourism can do that, we really have to push this forward.
what does the government have to do to help get this going?
Well, firstly, the manifesto clearly states a call to declare 2020 the National Golf Tourism Year. And it is a private sector initiated effort. And we had a very milestone meeting yesterday, and it will be, you'll hear it first here on your show with Jed. Senator Tito Soto, the Senate President, no less, who I had a meeting with in the golf course in May this year by accident. He received formally the manifesto from the summit. That manifesto states the position and what it's calling for the country to do in 2020. He's very much supportive. In our talks and in my talks with him, I asked that since he's an avid golfer, sportsman, if he can be the patron of Philippine golf tourism, and he's very much willing. We're very appreciative of the time he gave us yesterday. And when we had the little bonuses, Senator Lito Lapid, who's also an avid golfer from Pampanga, immediately said, I'm going to file a resolution when the Congress resumes in November. He got a copy of the resolution. Senator Nancy Binay, who is the chair of the Committee on Tourism of the Philippine Senate now, is also aware, and she will also support it.
Fantastic.
And another sports enthusiast, Senator Pia Cayetano, she was there yesterday and said, sure, let's do this.
Yeah,
So-
it's hard not to get behind something that can benefit so many Filipinos.
Right.
It's really tough not to get behind it. But really, in real terms, where do we go beyond getting? Where do we go from beyond getting, 2020 declared as the National Golf?
Well, we need to bring it to the president, of course, who is a golfer himself. And we're choosing the right channels with Minieng to get to the president. If we had a chance to speak to Senator Bongo yesterday, it would have been perfect, but that's always open. The way it goes is that he can issue an executive order to declare it, and then a IRR will be crafted. In our discussions with the stakeholders that attended, we'll do this one step at a time. We'll also seek the assistance of the Department of Tourism, the Department of Finance, Tourism for the promotion side and the regulation side, and Finance for the incentives that we want all sectors to benefit from because of this. What does government have to do? That's exactly this. It has to look at the figures, the global figures that are available, the amount of money spent by golf tourists, and it knows that it's what they call a high-end tourist, and get out and promote and bring it here. Nowadays, you have all these internet-based machines where you can actually book.
Yeah.
Like
Book.
this one.
Your stay.
Well, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, but imagine
That's
what
an area of future.
We will.
when we need to get the word out, and that's what I was telling Minieng, Mike, and you're going to be part of this. We want to get the word out that we're declaring that as the National Golf Tourism Year 2020, because then it will be in the mindset of everybody involved in the golfing industry that the Philippines is open for business when it comes to golf.
Ricky, it's good you said mindset, because I was asked. They said, golf tourism year. My God, it's only a few months away, and what can we do? I said, Gulf Tourism Year is a mindset, okay? It calls upon you to think of ways to encourage tourism, golf tourism. And by doing so, you open a lot of doors, and a lot of doors. So shows like this, these podcasts, is just a beginning of a groundswell, which has to go on and on. It has to be a tsunami of efforts that is needed. Why? Well, because first of all, it's late already. We got to do
Right.
things right away, ASAP. And if we don't, we miss the boat. We're missing the boat already.
Yeah.
Let's get on a new boat and catch up. So the groundswell is not only through government, but through private initiative. And I understand Mr. Bob Sobrepeña is willing to hold a meeting of all GMs of golf courses. And you see, what we've done here is reboot, like Ricky was saying, the idea that has been fostering all these years. And let's get everybody talking about it. Even those that don't believe in it are part of it. Why?
Yeah.
Because they are the best people. The minute you convince them, you've got a friend on board. The minute you convince them. And that's our job, convincing everybody from all sectors to get on board.
You know, Mike, one of the things that will be ongoing, I know Minieng, we discussed this, the manifesto that was passed in Iloilo. We're going to spread it out and get more signatories.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
good.
as
good idea.
Minieng has said,
Good idea.
Mr. Sobrepeña mentioned to me yesterday he's willing to host one. There are meetings that we used to hold across the department
Correct. Yeah.
at the Korean Garden.
Yes.
Right. We will resume that. And the big goal, Mike, is to formalize the establishment of the Philippine Golf Tourism Council. It doesn't have to be too strict. We are open up. I've seen comments in your thread from the likes of Dan.
Yeah.
And,
Basically, the guys the other guys involved in the industry. Yeah.
and Bob
Guerrero.
Guerrero, Dan and Bob, you guys are very much welcome. And we'll make sure you get a heads up on the next meeting. Every person that wants to help.
You know, we
He's
talked
very much
about,
welcome.
we were at the Senate yesterday, but there is always the lower house to get on board
Yes.
too. So what I will do when I get back to Iloilo, we have 5 congressmen,
Yeah.
5 representatives of the lower house. I want to get them together with the mayor or the governor, and together be that kind of voice to go up to the lower house, and together the Senate, the lower house, we will bring this to the forefront. That there is a clamor, there is this groundswell coming up. That when it gets to the table of the president, he cannot deny.
Yeah.
He cannot deny the numbers, the money that will come in, the employment.
Yeah, if you think about it, I believe the statistics were that the golf tourist, the average golf tourist, not your really high-end ones, but just the average golf tourist, spends 150% more than your average tourist.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of value. I mean, basically, golf tourists are almost worth, one golf tourist is worth like two of your
Easily.
average garden variety
Yeah.
tourists, right?
Right.
More if you're focusing on backpackers or low-end tourism
Yeah.
projects. So there's really no, and here's what gets me is we probably of all of the Southeast Asian countries, we have the richest golf heritage.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, right.
Iloilo was built in 1907, and that wasn't even the first golf course
No,
in the country.
no, it wasn't. No,
Right?
it wasn't.
I mean, the
Yeah.
first golf course in the country was built in what, 1897 or something like that? Manila Golf was the first
Manila Golf
course,
was the
right?
first one.
And it was where Seafront is now.
Or somewhere, I
was
believe
the
it was
first
somewhere
one.
in Tutuban or something like that.
No, that was the second one. The first
Really?
one was where Seafront is now. That was
Really?
the first location. They moved to Caloocan much later after the railroad was established, because most of the golfers there were the foreigners.
Right.
And so the club actually followed the railroad,
Correct,
and that's
correct.
how
Yes.
Iloilo was.
The
Santa
same
Barbara
way,
was
the
built.
same way. The Scottish and the American engineers that built
Right.
the Panay Railway were the ones who built the PNR
Right.
in Luzon, because we were the second railway system that was
country.
built in the country. And who else would they get? The same
Same
guys who
guys,
made those
of
golf
course.
courses. Now, of course, those courses in Seafront, in Caloocan are gone already. Manila Golf has since
Correct.
been relocated. They lost that distinction, and we gained being the oldest existing one. But now we are the oldest, pure
Period.
and simple,
Yeah.
oldest.
1907, right?
1907.
And it's interesting, Mike. I was also asked to present this, and this is very timely for us in this program, Mike. As you know, we've been meeting with the guys from the Ladies European Tour and the PGA. Jazz has met us a couple of times, and we made an announcement in Iloilo that the PGA is looking to accredit a course in the Philippines to be a PGA accredited course. Why are they doing that? Because they want to draw attention in Europe especially, that there are courses here that are capable of hosting big events. There's a plan to hold the Ladies European Tour in March here next year. But more importantly is that when Jazz got wind of what we did in Iloilo, and then he Googled, remember he's UK based,
You're right.
when he Googled Iloilo Golf and Country Club in Santa Barbara, it opened up so much information about the Scottish engineers. And the last I heard from Jazz is that there are those interested to come over and visit because of the link that has been established in 1907.
Yeah.
And it not
So there's a ready market for
not
Santa
just to
Barbara,
visit,
Scotland.
but they would also like to help.
Mind you.
Keep it going
Wow.
because of that historical link.
Gentlemen, mind you, it's an old course. It's 113 years old, but it is not a easy golf course.
Oh, I can attest to that.
I'll tell you why. Not
We
because
can attest to that.
Not because of it's funky or funny or the design is old, but you know the ICTSI golf pros go there every year. For the last 3 years, the lowest score was 8 under for 4 days, 8 under par. Okay, by way of comparison, and I'm not demeaning the other courses, but example, in Marapara, the winning scores I believe was 21 under par. Okay, and we are a small course. Okay, we are about 6,000 yards all told
From the tips.
From the tips.
Oh.
Okay, but imagine, you know, these pros, they can reach those par fours. They're
Easy.
8 under par for 4 days.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, really.
doesn't add up, right? Doesn't seem to add up.
Yes, so you who's watching this, come and see for yourself. Don't believe us, just go there. I'm inviting you as the president of the Iloilo Golf and Country Club. Go to Santa Barbara, Iloilo. You'll be surprised.
No, and really talking about Santa Barbara, in my opinion, I've played most of the major courses in the Visayas, and Santa Barbara is really the most unique. It's got the most topography, if any of the courses there that I've played. Outside of Alta Vista in Cebu, I don't think there's a hillier golf course. I mean, hillier championship golf course.
Yes, it's
Right?
not
I mean, look
a...
at Cebu Country Club, Marapara, Binitin, none.
They're not severe hills, you know.
No, they're not severe hills,
Yes,
but
they're not, but-
there's significant slopes
Oh, yeah.
to those fairways.
Yeah.
It's enough to affect the distance that you're playing to or you're trying to play to. It's enough to affect your judgment.
Right.
It shields you from the wind if you're in the wrong place. I mean,
Every
it's
hole is different. Every hole is
That's right.
unique in itself.
And it's interesting how organically that golf course came about. I mean, unlike most of the golf courses now, there's no one designer, right? I mean, this is something that it started as 9 holes.
It's a 9-hole golf course.
Which of the holes are part of that original 9?
The only ones that are left is number 11, number 14, 15 and number 18. All the rest are
Oh,
essentially rerouted, but
The
they
ones
still
that have
retain.
the sandboxes.
Oh, that's right.
The original 1907 sandboxes.
Thank you for mentioning that. We're the only ones who
Just
have
in
that.
case you guys aren't familiar, you had sandboxes on the tee boxes because you had to get some sand to build your tee.
Your tea.
Oh, that's how you teed up a ball. back
There
in
are
the
two
day.
compartments in that sandbox. One is the sand, of course, and the other compartment is water. And you say water? Well, you're supposed to splash your hand on the water, and where it lands, the wet sand, you make it into a little pile and form it like a little
T.
a T, and you bring it down to the ground, and then put your ball on top of that.
Maybe we will hold a tournament and that everybody
Sure.
No, I mean,
has to
that
do
would be
that
fun.
instead
That
of
would
the
be fun.
instead of the
bringing
plastic
on your
tees.
tees, yeah.
You see, that's not everybody knows that, and thank you, Ricky, for mentioning that. It's very unique.
Meaning, Mike, tourism is about a story.
Oh,
And what better story we had with the summit was to declare and pass a manifesto in a venue that has so much history, like Santa Barbara.
yeah.
It gives me goosebumps just thinking that we're here in Santa Barbara rebooting golf tourism in a place that rightfully so should be the home of Philippine golf because of it's able to exist
Oh,
through
Yeah.
more than 100 years.
really? Just the fact that the oldest golf course, and it's the only golf course on Panay,
Yeah.
Yes, that's
which
true.
is, and Panay is the biggest island in the Visayas, right? To have only one golf course on the largest island in the Visayas is really a disconnect of sorts.
We're talking about history, gentlemen. I'd like to mention the history of the town Santa Barbara. Do you know that the cry of Santa Barbara during the Philippine Revolution of 1898 is very significant because that is where the first time that the Philippine flag as we know it now was unfurled outside of Luzon.
Whoa.
It was unfurled by then General Martin Delgado in Santa Barbara, who hails from Santa Barbara, and that in fact every November every year that
event is celebrated.
event is celebrated, and
Amazing.
and when I stood in front of the people in Santa Barbara the other month, I told them about our efforts for golf tourism. I said, do you know that only 9 years after the Philippine Revolution, they were playing golf already in Santa Barbara? Put it in its context, you know? Can you imagine?
Oh, that's amazing.
Huh?
That's wild.
Philippine Revolution, 9 years later, you're playing
You're
golf
playing
in
golf.
Santa
Wow.
Barbara.
Imagine,
Crazy.
imagine that.
That's another world. That's
Yeah,
another
I think-
time.
That's such an attraction. That's such a hook, really, for the tourist.
It's
To be
amazing.
able to walk a golf course that old with that much history in it. I mean, we're
And it's
talking
still there.
Yeah, and it's still there. It's still there pretty much in its original form.
Yes.
I think
So that's-
when Mike publishes the list which Minieng has generously provided, the list of courses built in
At the same
1907
time, yeah.
by Scottish descent and Iloilo Golf and Country Club.
It's the only one there. It's the only one outside of
And
Scotland.
it's right there in the middle of the list.
It's the only one outside of Scotland.
Can you imagine that when you see that list, golfers want to play in the home of golf in
Exactly. Right.
Scotland?
Yeah.
You did not go to Scotland because among all the golf courses built in 1907, one is in the Philippines. And I'm sure Mike will soon blast that to the community.
Oh, I can't wait to go back, man. It's been
Been a while.
10 years.
For the information
Close
of
to
the
it.
viewers, Mike was very generous about his time and his efforts to write about the centennial year of Iloilo Golf and Country Club.
Yeah.
That was back in 2007.
2007.
But you were there already before that,
Before that.
2005, 2006. You
In 2005, that was my
made
first
so many
career.
trips back and forth, and you interviewed my dad and got
Yes.
a lot of information about the history, the colorful history of
it was
Iloilo
really
Golf.
eye-opening talking to your dad. Man. I mean, that's,
Thank you.
I'm,
He
I'm-
gives his regards, by the way. He's well and good.
I wish him well, but you know what I was going to say was that I came to the game pretty late. I've only been playing 25 years at this point, so although that sounds long to some of you, I'm relatively a beginner compared to some of my other friends that have been playing since they were kids. So I'm grateful for any chance to learn more about, the time that I didn't know, that I was preoccupied doing other sports. And it just makes me sorry about how much I missed. It's hard not to discuss these things and not wish I'd taken golf up like
Catching up.
10, 15 years earlier.
Now, that's the thing. The heritage and the story and the history of Iloilo, especially Iloilo Golf and Country Club, is like a trigger, and you can feel the feel of the revolutionary days pushing us to establish the national golf tourism here in 2020, and with what we've been accomplished since that manifesto was passed, I think we're full steam ahead, and hopefully we will get that document passed in both houses of Congress, and we'll bring in the executive branch to support.
We could even have a historic golf tour here. I think
Yeah.
we have enough golf courses with enough history dating back to, well beyond the memory of most of our millennial listeners. I'm thinking about Luisita
Yeah.
or
Baguio
Del
Golf
Monte,
and Country Club.
right? Del Monte.
Baguio Golf and Country
Baguio
Club.
Golf and Country Club.
Zamboanga.
Zamboanga, that's another one. 9 holes by the ocean, another 9 holes coming back the other way.
We're covering the whole
There's just so
archipelago.
much, man. There's just so much that
That's,
we're
that's
Luzon to
a-
Mindanao.
That's
going
under
unnoticed.
both Intramuros and Zamboanga are under DOT through TIESA.
Yeah. So, I get asked that a lot. What are the historic golf courses here? And I go, dude, how much time do you have? Because you can go into each one, and each one is rich in other ways, in their own unique ways.
Right.
Look at Del Monte. Del Monte started as a 9-hole recreational golf course of the executives of the Del Monte company. And then it became the home of one of the greatest golf champions of the country, Celestino Tugut. And then it got to the point where they eventually asked him to expand the 18. And that course is still pretty much the same way it was. The history behind it. The historical
speaking of-
marker on, what is that, 17, 16?
Speaking of history, the old course in St. Andrews is not even the oldest golf course. But the thing is, being called the old course of St. Andrews, it became a mecca. When people go there, it's like the cathedral of golf. But because of the history, I remember when we were there with Bob Sobrepena and all these other guys, and this was the first time they played. Prior to that, I already played in St. Andrews, and I said, the very first hole, they looked around and said, my goodness, this is not like any American golf course or even Filipino golf course we've been to. What is this? And then they started playing the next hole and the next hole after that, and then it opened up. The reason why it becomes a pilgrimage of golfers, and after that they said, "I'm coming back."
Oh,
We're
it's just a
coming back.
different style of golf.
The history is
different style of golf.
Yeah, the experience
When
is
it was
beyond
modernized
description.
yet.
Yeah, no, and it's the two styles of golf couldn't be more opposite. The American style is you fly it on to a specific target, but the Scottish game is a ground game.
Right, right.
I mean, the fairways are hard, ball rolls forever. I mean, and that's where you have to control
By
it.
the way, Mike, the grass, the fairway and the green grass
Same, right?
are the same.
It's the same.
Yeah. Unlike what we're used to, when you get to the green, it's a different
It's a
grass.
different type of grass, yeah.
So back there, it is the same grass. They just mow it a little lower.
Yeah, you know, and I think we have to get some perspective as golfers that not every golf course has to be perfect. I mean, not every golf course looks like Augusta National, right? In fact, I think Augusta National has done a great disservice to golf courses worldwide by setting a standard so high that it's impossible for other all golf courses to copy, right? But it does not diminish the satisfaction that you get from playing. See, and that's, you know, it's true that a lot of our golf courses here aren't built to the same standards as, say, just Sentosa in Singapore, which is an hour's flight away from here, right? But not every golf course has to be immaculately manicured.
Yeah.
Because when a golf course is like that, hard-baked ground, crusty greens, it takes a different type of control, you know, to manage your ball. And it's a skill that you probably don't have if you're used to the American style of golf, which makes it so compelling, I think. So I think that's another idea for some of the newer golf courses. That might be a good model to follow instead of the American model, which requires perfection on the greens, perfect fairways and bunkers. The British model is more, it's a public park that people can hit a golf ball on, basically, right? I mean, if you go to St. Andrews, you've got dogs and children playing and all these things going on at the same time.
St. Andrews is a public course.
It's a public course. It's a public park, basically.
They close it on. They're closed on Sundays.
Yeah. But open to everybody else, right? Open to everybody else.
No, I think we realize now what is it out there that attracts the average or the tourists and golfers. You're right, Mike. Minieng, we have so much to offer, a variety of what to offer. We just have to get the word out.
Yeah.
And we have to get our act together.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest
And it's
thing.
simultaneous. I think now that we're reaching out and talking to government, and the private sector is gung ho. It cannot move at the same pace. But I always believe that when private sector aggressively moves faster, government is not far behind.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it will be together. And that was my challenge during the summit, is that as private sector, we move this forward, up to where we can bring it, and then sooner or later, when we have traction, and government sees that we're getting somewhere and getting the message out, they will definitely.
But I think equally important is that the industry needs to present a unified face to the world.
Yes.
Right? So if right now it's so difficult because like we were talking offline, it's easy to play here if you know somebody. Right? But if you're a tourist coming in cold, I mean, it's really quite difficult.
Yeah.
Other than the few public courses that we have, it's really quite difficult to get on. And I think that's the biggest thing that needs to change, you know, to make us appealing to the world at large, is we need to have a unified stance on golf tourists. We need to be a little more accommodating, you know, than many of the private clubs are now. I think in this day and age, a lot of the clubs realize that their fairways aren't completely full. Right? As busy as a club may claim to be, you have times during the day where there's not too many people on the golf course. And that's the opportunity for tourism to start. Right? Eventually we might have, I can foresee the day that you will have golf courses built specifically for the tourist traffic. Okay, which is, if you look at some of the Korean golf courses, that's how they're designed. They're designed to flow a lot of people through the course. It's less about the challenge of moving than it is about moving people through the golf course. So we're not there yet. I think we're a few years away from that, but that's one possibility down the road. No, I mean that we will have golf courses built specifically for tourists.
Right. You mentioned empty fairways. An average member plays about maybe 8-10 times a month.
A month.
A month. And he's paying his dues for the 30 days of that month. So in other words, 20 days is empty. His money is actually subsidizing 20 days of emptiness
Right.
that he's not using. So what we're proposing is that let the tourism sector fill in those 20 days. Even just a portion of those 20 days. Let it earn revenues for the club. Who knows, if we can't roll back your monthly dues, we surely don't need to increase it every year.
Exactly, right. No assessments either. No
No
mid-year
more
assessments,
yes,
projects.
yes, yeah.
You know, and then what a lot of you others don't understand or don't appreciate is the fact that if the club's making money, your golf course is going to become in better shape, right? Because there's an incentive now. If your golf course is making money off tourism dollars, you're going to think of ways to make your golf course even more appealing,
Right.
so you can earn more money from this revenue stream, and that means a better facility for all of the members. So if you're a member and you're worried about the impact of golf tourists on your playing time and on your access to the tee time that you want, I say don't be afraid of it. You will still have more than enough time on your golf course,
Yeah.
and you'll be playing a better golf course.
Open up
on
your
top.
doors, guys. Open
Yeah.
up your doors.
So moving forward, I think we need to really get the rest of the industry together, work a little more closely with government to make sure these incentives happen,
Right.
and we should be off to the races.
There was an initial idea that we don't have to do this immediately full blast. I like the idea of Minieng where we can assign zones
Clusters.
or clusters. Like for example, the
And then promote the
cluster.
clusters independently.
For example, the cluster in Western Visayas of Bacolod, Iloilo, Caticlan. Those are 3 courses there in Marapara, Iloilo Golf, and Fairways. Bob's open to that. And then the northern cluster, which is basically Clark, Luisita, Pradera. And then another one in Mindanao, where you have Apo, Cagayan de Oro,
Yeah,
and
lots of good golf there.
you know the
Good
one of
variety.
the Pitan, where
Yeah.
you have the Kak, no?
Yeah, that's the new one.
Old
Very
and new. The
picturesque.
flavor is there, you know. And it's
Yeah.
always
And
different.
mind you, all of these mentioned areas have airports, and they can become international airports. And it's just a matter of coming up with a program that will allow them to visit an area to play. And I think the ideas are all there on the table. Now it's time to put it all together
Yeah.
and let a council of some sort oversee it, so that everybody has a stake in this, all stakeholders, proceed together as one.
Yeah. Well, this is certainly a blue sky opportunity for the Philippines. I mean, and it's not that we're starting from zero. We don't have any golf courses, no facilities whatsoever. Nothing's further from the truth. A lot of the infrastructure is already in there. It just needs to be maybe tweaked a little bit to make it more appealing to incoming tourists, but everything is there in place. Now, the key here is how we move forward. And I want to thank the 2 of you for joining us today and sharing your views. Very exciting stuff down the pipe for Philippine tourism. It'll be nice to have you back in about 6 or 8 months to see how we've progressed, how far we've moved along.
Maybe we can also invite the other stakeholders.
Oh, that would be
join
great.
us.
That would be wonderful. Maybe we could have a little forum here.
Yes.
So again, I'd like to thank Resorts World Manila for hosting us today. They've been wonderful hosts. Our partners in and they participated in the Golf Summit too.
Yes, they were there.
Yeah,
The
they're big
resorts were-
stakeholders. They have been.
They
huge
realize
supporters of
how golf is such a lucrative.
Yes, no, and Resorts World
Yes.
has a lot of business in Malaysia, which a lot of which is golf centric.
There you go.
So this is just a continuation of that model here. So it's no reason why we can't, benefit from that as well. So thank you again, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Beautiful hour,
Jed, thank you very
and
much.
we'll see
Appreciate
you
it.
on the next one.